Hi, I'm AmberMac. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to have a very special guest in studio, and we are going to talk about a year of ChatGPT. Happy birthday, ChatGPT, as well as generative AI and where things are going in 2024. Now, I feel like my next guest needs no introduction, but I'm going to do an introduction nonetheless. So, Shawn Kanungo is joining us, not virtually, but here at AmberMac Media. And we are so excited to talk about this topic and really dive into how generative AI is affecting the future of skills, the future of work, even raising our kids. What does it mean in terms of education and what we're teaching them? Shawn has been doing this for a long time, many, many years on stage. Also just wrote a book that we will also talk about on this broadcast. And we'll watch some of his clips. And I want to get his reaction to those clips many weeks after he posted them, see if anything has changed. But most importantly, I want to make this as interactive as possible. I see we have people who are joining the broadcast already. Hello to you, and thank you for being here. So Shawn is sitting here very patiently, and it's time to introduce him. Shawn, thanks so much for being here.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. I can't, just coming here and seeing all the camera setups. I mean, this is incredible. And honestly, just having a conversation with you is such a pleasure. I have been watching you for years, and you are honestly a legend in this space when it comes to technology in Canada. Like, you are it. So for me to be on here in the studio for the first time, it means a lot.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I admire all of the work that you're doing as well. So it's fun to see so many people in this space talking about this topic and really kind of pushing the boundaries of what's possible with generative AI. I want to welcome once again people who are joining in the chat. And I do want to say that we want to make this interactive. So by all means, if you have any questions at all for us, now is your chance. Usually you have to wait for one of us to hit the stage and ask in a live Q&A, but super excited to be here live from the AmberMac Media studio. So let's just talk for a second. It's been a year of ChatGPT. What is your assessment of the past year? How has it changed the world of work and even our lives day to day?
Well, happy birthday, by the way, ChatGPT. It's been a wild year. I remember last year when ChatGPT came out, I literally went on stage. It was like, hey, I don't know if anybody's heard about this. It just came out during this weekend, and here's some things that you could do with it. And at that point, when I used it for the first time, it's just like when you use Uber for the first time or you jump on the internet for the first time. It's just like this magical experience. And the ability for it to, generate the text that it could at the time was incredible. And I said at the time, this is going to transform industries. This is going to transform work. And if you think about a year later and see all the different startups, see the development, see how people are using it, not only for art, but for code, for development and beyond, I fundamentally believe that this is actually underhyped. I know that, Gartner has already put this at the peak of the hype cycle. I believe that it's underhyped. I don't think we've even figured out, how this is going to transform the world. And I'm just excited about the opportunities. Of course, there's going to be some things some downsides for it, but it's just been incredible to see. And people are already using it on the ground floor.
You're exactly right. And I will say, too, I really like the point you made in terms of I don't think we really understand the full impact that generative AI is going to have. I really see it as kind of chipping away at the way that we do things, kind of slowly, but on a pretty regular pace. And I was thinking about this even as a parent. I've been helping my son this year in terms of taking all of his study notes, and he will dump them into some type of generative AI program and create quizzes, create study notes, really kind of expand his thinking on a certain topic. And it just strikes me as that we don't really understand the different ways we can use generative AI today. And I think it's going to blow people's minds.
Oh, 100%. Obviously, as parents, this is going to be a game changer. And I actually think it's going to rewire how we look at education. To be honest with you, I got 3 kids, and, they're in the traditional education system. I don't know if I want my kids memorizing all the capitals of all the provinces, but instead I want them to, is that important right now? Or is it important how to understand how to be a human, how to ask better questions, how to solve problems, how to build a friend, how to build a business, like things that are more tactical and tangible. Like, to me, that's way more important because I just feel that everyone on the planet is going to have this as a co-pilot. They're going to have a superpower at their fingertips. And what does that mean for education? What does that mean for our society? This is going to reimagine how we look at education fundamentally.
I think you're exactly right. And I also think in some cases, assuming that people have access to the technology in the first place, access to internet infrastructure, there is that potential of leveling the playing field, right? You know, I'm not an overly creative person, but all of a sudden I'm able to be a designer now. You talk a little bit about this in terms of, you know, the opening up of new skills. And that's really exciting. I think especially if people can see the value that it can bring. In a second, I want to show some clips in terms of some of the videos that you've done in the past, but maybe we could just start with this question about adding value to the job that you already have. When you see all of these generative AI tools, many people ask me on stage, where do I start?
Yeah,
right? It's changing every few weeks. Yes, it's our job to keep up to date with all of these new tools and technologies. The average person can't really do that. So how do you recommend they get started?
Yeah. Well, to your point around the access to generative AI, like today, more people around the world have access to generative AI more than they have access to clean water or decent sanitation services, meaning more people have access to generative AI through their smartphone than clean toilets. So if you think about the democratic nature of generative AI, it's already impacting the world. People already have access to it. To your question around how people can get started with this, to me, actually, that's not the question. That's what everybody should be doing right now. This doesn't count. Watching this live doesn't count. To me, it's about going to some of these different platforms, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's Bard in the US, whether it's Perplexity AI or some of these different tools, and put something in. I got to make a recipe. I'm planning a trip. Just put something in, because I fundamentally believe that watching something or reading about something, it doesn't count as learning. You have to do something about it. Take action. Design a picture. Organize a trip. Do something, because then you will start to see how this might impact your life. And if you take any knowledge work today or anything that requires us to access information, to research information, today it can be done by generative AI. And I believe that's why knowledge work is going to be completely transformed, and where everyone's going to have this co-pilot, this superhero at their fingertips. I don't know, how have you been using it? I'm just curious, like how you've been using it on a day-to-day basis. And
yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. So I don't use generative AI that much for writing because I consider myself a good writer and faster than ChatGPT. That might change in the months and years to come. But how I've been using it is really a number of different tools. So for example, in my newsletter, when I'm testing subject lines, I'll use a generative AI tool to give me feedback on those subject lines in terms of increasing our open rates, right?
Yep.
So that's one example. Using it in terms of like Opus Clip, for example, to be able to go in and create these clips that are generated, again, through AI technology. That's really helpful for social media clips. Experimenting with it in terms of, like I said, with my son and doing quizzes, using tools where you can easily drop in study notes and then create multiple choice quizzes. I mean, that's a game changer for students, right?
Yeah.
And being able to do that in seconds, right? Something that would have taken you potentially hours to do can be done in seconds. So we're using it in lots of different ways, but quite frankly, every single day, it kind of changes in terms of the new tools and technologies I'm trying out. Just if you are joining us and you're wondering what we are talking about a year of ChatGPT and generative AI. Where are things going coming into 2024? Super excited to be here with Shawn Kanungo. I do want to say that you recently published a book. So for people who are joining and they're curious a little bit about who you are and about your book, maybe you can give them a little preview of the book if they haven't had a chance
thanks
to read
for
it.
It's not only been the 1 year anniversary for ChatGPT, it's also the 1 year anniversary of my book called The Bold Ones.
Woohoo!
So thank you so much. The Bold Ones is a playbook for individuals to go off and disrupt. I really wanted to write this book where just dissect individuals throughout history that were that were bold, that disrupted their particular industries. I believe that actually the most disruptive entity in the world is not generative AI. To me, the most disruptive entity in the world today is the individual, because now we have everything in our pocket. We have all the tools and technologies and software and media at our fingertips. So it's really like, what can we create? What can we build today? And that's why I wanted to write this book, because I really believe that the power is shifting from institutions to individuals. And we have so much more power today than ever before, everybody around the world. So I want to create a book that would inspire people to say, let's start something and let's do it today.
Love it. Yes, you should definitely read the book if you haven't had a chance. Buy it. A great gift for the holidays if you're buying presents for anyone, especially anyone who's into business and kind of transforming their life as well. So thank you for being here. If you are just tuning in to our broadcast, appreciate it. I wanted to just say hello to Joe, to Jess, to Lisa. Lisa made a comment here saying we're humans helping humans. And I really love that in terms of talking about the fact that AI, of course, there's lots of tools that we can leverage, but at the end of the day, there's still that human element to everything that we do.
Well, I actually think that the generative AI is going to be the best thing for humans at the end of the day, because my belief is that when everything goes digital, actually what matters the most is human beings, the ability to understand each other, the ability to have amazing experiences. I actually think that going to a concert, going out to eat at a restaurant, seeing people face to face, that's going to have way more value in a highly digital world. The pendulum always sort of shifts in that way. And so I'm super bullish on more human interactions in a increasingly AI world. If that sounds kind of weird.
No, I think you're exactly right. Every time I keynote, I always talk about the fact that, hey, yes, I'm here to talk about digital skills, but really what I'm talking about is also honing those uniquely human skills, like understanding how can AI tools help me? How can they improve my productivity and increase my capabilities? But really at the core, while that happens, what do I do perhaps with that extra time?
Yep.
Maybe potentially I can be a better human and I can increase those skills that I have around collaboration, curiosity, creativity, all of those things that are uniquely human. So Lisa, thank you so much for that comment in the chat. Now, as I mentioned to Shawn, I had a chance to pull some clips, and I do want to just backtrack for a second and say, Shawn said, do you want to have coffee in Toronto? And I said, even better, why don't you come and we will go on LinkedIn together and we will have our chat live. And you're game for it.
Hey, listen, I love when somebody's like, let's make content out of our coffee session. So I think we're on the same wavelength on there.
Thank you.
And then she's like, yeah, why don't you just come in? We'll produce content. And then I come here and it's like a beautiful studio. There's 5 cameras, producer Chris. I mean, it's crazy. So.
Well, I'm glad that you're game, because not all of my friends would be okay with this idea, but you are. So let me first introduce a clip that I pulled today that is all about leveling up with generative AI. So we pulled this off your Instagram page. Let's take a look about your thoughts on how to scale humans.
I like this.
For the first time ever, we have figured out how to scale humans. You see, the assembly line helped us scale products, but generative AI is helping to scale humans. Today, we can do way more with way less. We've always had this scarcity mindset that we need more resources, we need more funding in order to do our work. But today, we have the power of a 1,000-person firm in the 1990s in our pocket. It's interesting, like in the 80s and 90s, we were appalled that there were companies that were outsourcing their work overseas. And in the early 2000s, we were appalled that there were companies that were outsourcing their IT and their call centers overseas. Well, over this next decade, we're going to be appalled that the entire world has now leveled up. And now the differentiator is not knowledge. The differentiator is hunger.
All right. So I'm going to ask you just to kind of break that down. Before I do, want to say that Derek has left a really great question in the comments. We'll get to you in a second, Derek. So sit tight. Thank you for being here. Shawn, when you talk about leveling up as humans, maybe you could give us some context to that clip.
Yeah, to me, it goes back to the idea that the human is the most disruptive entity in the world. It goes back to the fact that today, when it comes to knowledge work, we have everything at our fingertips. So guess what? If you're a developer, you now have a superhero, so now you can become a 10x developer. If you're a designer, now you can be a 10x designer. If you're a writer, you can be a 10x writer. And there's some research that have already shown that, if you're a low performing professional, that this can help you level up. And in fact, this can help everyone level up in your particular craft. And so I think that's incredibly inspiring, because to me, it's like the differentiator is no longer the knowledge, but really the differentiator is your work ethic, your hunger, your ability to innovate, your ability to be bold. And so I believe that this is turning everyone that has access to it into a 10x professional. I'm already seeing my friends, like every single one of my friends that's a coder, that's a developer, that's already using it. 100% of people are using this. And you're going to see that with every single profession.
I think you're right on that front as well. And there are always, with new technologies, historically, we've always seen this. There are, of course, bad actors who decide to use generative AI in nefarious ways. And that really brings up the question that Derek has here. Generative AI is great and will have a significant impact on the world. But what about regulatory or oversight in general to ensure that we do not see even more fake news? It's an excellent point. We have a lot of work to do, but it is also fair to say that the EU just passed their AI Act this past weekend, or they agreed that things would move forward in terms of laws around that front. So Shawn, we will hopefully potentially get to the point where there is regulation around using AI in ways that are harmful for humans. Are you confident that we can do that?
No, I'm not confident that we can figure it out. Are we confident that we were able to regulate the internet in a way that we should be regulated? Are we confident that we were able to regulate social media the way, like with every single technological shift, we've been terrible at predicting the downside. And of course, when it comes to generative AI, there's going to be tons of downsides. You're already seeing it. Deepfakes, synthetic relationships, exponential scams and blackmail, like, it's going to happen. But I believe that with every single technology, that it's 51% good and 49% terrible. And we need to regulate it. We need to look at the downside risks. But that shouldn't prevent us from actually trying it and figuring out where the opportunities are. And so am I confident that we're going to get it right? Absolutely not. We're not going to get it right because we haven't got it right. Like, I don't know where you are on social media, just as a parent, like, it's been incredible. Listen, we built incredible businesses on the backs of it, but has it been great for our kids? I'm just not confident, but I'd love to get your take on it, because this is the question that when we talk about generative AI, everyone comes back to the downsides.
Well, you're right. I mean, and I think it's a normal reaction with all new technology. We come back to that point and we worry about the risks with new technology. I mean, the risks are true of any type of advancement we have in our society. Think about a vehicle, for example. If there is a collision or an accident, a vehicle can be a deadly weapon. At the same time, it also allows for transportation and is important in terms of the economy, right? So there's always that good and bad. I think the difference today is that, unfortunately, when it comes to regulation, especially on the digital front and more specifically on generative AI, I think we have governments that are kind of slow to react because they were caught off guard when ChatGPT came into our world, when deepfakes became so easy to create. They really weren't up on these trends. And so they're trying to play catch up, right? I think that's one issue. Secondly, I think when we talk about some of the big tech companies, they're also slow to recognize the negative impact that they could have and the consequences of this technology. And it's almost like we need a new generation of these leaders to be able to move forward with this technology, take the benefits and the opportunities into account and move forward on that front, but also address the complexities as well as the issues and put those guardrails in place. Like, we need people who understand both sides of the equation.
But I think that, the problem is that even the people that are leading the charge in this space, they have no idea around where this technology is going to go. I was recently listening to an interview with the old CEO and then the new CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman. He was at the time, he was voted as the CEO of the year by Time. And he was doing an interview of where this technology is going to go. And he had no idea where it was going to go. So how are we going to get the regulators to figure out where this is going to go? And this is where I believe that we need to innovate on the regulation side at the same time that we are innovating on the business side of things. And those need to work hand in hand. And if I'm a full believer in regulation, it's important. I just believe, to your point, we need really smart people that are actually on the ground floor, that are not only built, that are also building this at the same time. So it's a tricky balance, but we need to figure it out.
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that we need people who are smart enough to be able to figure out some of these issues, recognize that those issues do exist. And it's great to go to industry to be able to understand, again, the opportunities that exist with generative AI. But the risks, again, I think we also have to take them more seriously. We have to move more quickly on that front. I'll give you a quick example of this. I was at an event recently, and there was someone speaking who I admire greatly about the legal implications of deepfakes, for example. And he said to me when I asked a question, he said, sometimes things are awful but lawful. And I really hated that answer. And I'll tell you why, because it's sort of saying, hey, we give up. And when you put generative AI into the category of deepfakes, and I don't know if you've seen the app where young people are able to kind of undress another person using a deepfake and potentially ruin the lives of a young person. I don't really want to live in a world where that is actually legal.
100%.
Right?
100%.
And so I really resent this sentiment that we can't do anything, that we can't recognize the opportunities and embrace them. And at the same time, we can't push forward regulation to keep people safe. We've done this in every other industry. Food, for example.
Yep.
We want people to eat, but we have to regulate food so that you don't get sick. Transportation, we want you to be able to drive, but there are also limits in terms of speeding. So we have to understand that we can, hand in hand, recognize the opportunities, put the guardrails in place, and be more progressive on that front. Canada is a wait and see country. I don't want us to be like that forever. We could be first, and we're a little slow. And maybe that speaks to the next clip that I pulled of yours, Shawn.
I like this. I like these clips.
I know.
This is like I made a movie, and then Jimmy Fallon is just showcasing clips. I like it. Okay.
It's kind of like that,
Yeah.
but not exactly. But this is a really good clip in terms of, will robots take my job? And talking about the fact that you really do believe, as I do, that this can kind of improve our skills. So let's take a look at the clip.
If you are in a job today that is repetitive, that is redundant, that's mundane, that's mediocre, then the robot will come for you. This is the end of mediocrity. And when this whole conference is done, your new job is to figure out how AI is going to take your job. Because if you don't figure it out, somebody else will. There will be two types of companies in the future. Companies that are fueled by generative AI and companies that do not exist.
Okay, so we are going to get to that third clip. You saw a sneak peek of it at the end about Spanish is still the sexiest language. We'll explain that in a second. But let's kind of break down that clip that we showed. What were you thinking when you were talking about that topic on stage?
You know what? I've had this realization over the last number of months that I need to pull back on this question: will robots take my job? Because I think it's getting too real for people. I think it's showcasing the examples of what it can do and the potential of it. Like I don't want to stop talking about and showcasing what's real, but I think as a society we need to have a real conversation about this, because the reality is that unfortunately, if you are in a job today that is redundant, that's mediocre, that's repetitive, that's boring, when it comes to knowledge work, unfortunately, you will not have a place in the world in the future. I mean, to me, the future is people that can create value at the end of the day for their organizations and for their businesses and for the people around them. And the reason why I'm saying I need to temper this conversation is because I think people see the potential. They see the use cases. Like I'll show the use cases of what generative AI can do. And it becomes, they're like, they don't see the potential in it. They don't see how they can use this as a tool to create more value. They just see it as a way of taking away their tasks and jobs. And I need to figure out a way that we can showcase the potential without saying that this is going to remove their jobs. So it's really It's a difficult conversation to have. And I don't know if you've been having these conversations with folks around, will robots take your job? And, you know, I used to say it, and it used to be fun. Today, it's not, because people are seeing that it's so good. And by the way, it's not going to get worse. It's only going to get better. We are only in the first inning of this thing.
Yeah, so I started speaking about AI in 2018. I had a keynote called Demystifying Artificial Intelligence. And to be fair, I would say it was probably 3 to 4 years where people really weren't taking AI seriously. And it was kind of a joke. Like when I would show a robot in the presentation, on the assembly line, like people kind of chuckled, right?
Yeah.
And I really love your sincerity around this question, because I think you're absolutely right. It used to be something that was a little bit distant, and now it's right in front of people, right? And I think it is true, not to get super deep on this, although this is my tendency to do so, but it feels to me like if I look at the world today, the planet Earth, I feel like there's like Band-Aids everywhere, right? Like on Earth. Like we have had a really rough few years, and I unfortunately don't think people are ready for the impact that AI will have on their jobs. And I don't mean, we used to talk about factory workers. It's not just truck drivers or factory workers. We're talking about knowledge workers, and the list goes on and on. And I'm not sure people are really ready to accept that this is going to happen faster than they think, because I think the answer is yes. It's not going to be a robot who takes your job, as many people say. It'll be another person who knows how to leverage many of these new emerging technologies in a smarter way than you do, who will take your job. And to be honest with you, I struggle with this daily, but I don't really have the answer. I don't really know what we do. Like you and I are out there trying to educate people and get them to get excited and embrace this technology. But that's not enough, because you and I are speaking in closed rooms of people who, generally speaking, probably know that they have to do something. They maybe have the support of their leaders. Right. They're 300, 400, 500, maybe 1,000 people in a room. That's too small. We need everybody to get in on this 100%, conversation, right?
100%. And I think what I said in the clip was this idea that it's either you use this or you become irrelevant. And that's why we need everyone to at least try it and figure out how this might apply to your job today. And, the beautiful part of, I think actually the most beautiful part of generative AI is that the only thing that you need to do is to come up with an idea, is to speak, is to write something. Like people are like, oh, I'm not a technology person. I'm not tech savvy. Can you speak? Can you write? Can you just put some sentences? Like, can you put some words together? That is it. And so the barrier to entry when it comes to tech today, when it comes to generative AI, is nothing. It's funny because like a number of years ago in 2018, 2017, I was on the ground floor implementing AI with our clients. I was one of the first at Deloitte to implement IBM Watson with our particular clients. And then later on using robotic process automation, RPA. And RPA was something that most people on the ground floor didn't really have access to. You need to go to agency or contractor, and it was able to automate existing systems. And so it's funny, like watching that conversation, because only like an agency could do that, right? Only a big firm could do that, or somebody that you would hire that would have, you have to pay like $20,000 to do. But with generative AI, it's at our fingertips. There is no barrier. So to me, there is no excuse not to try it. And I fundamentally believe that if you're not experimenting with it, you will be irrelevant. And I know at the beginning I said I'm worried about this because of this conversation, and I've been trying to temper the conversation. But let's not forget that with every single technological shift, there's been new opportunities. There's been new industries. There's things that we haven't even figured out yet. So let's get the technology in people's hands so that we can figure out the future.
Yeah, absolutely. All really critical points. Okay, so I have eaten up a lot of your time, but I do want to show this one last clip, kind of a fun one, because when we think about the potentials of generative AI, one of those things that's kind of exciting, yes, there's a downside to deep faking when it comes to audio and video. We see this in terms of, being a threat to our democracy, but also it allows us potentially to communicate in different languages. And that's something that you have done in this next clip while you were on stage to just showcase how this works.
I've been also training my own voice in AI so that I can speak different languages. I've been training it in Hindi and in Spanish. Actually, let me know how I'm doing in Spanish, okay? My AI Shawn Kanungo version, all right? This is the Hindi version.
व्यक्तिगत बातचीत और अभूतपूर्व दक्षता के साथ इच्छाओं की पूर्वानुमान करके एआई ग्राहक यात्रा को ऊंचाइयों पर ले जाने के लिए तैयार है.
Al ofrecer interacciones personalizadas y anticipar deseos con una eficiencia sin precedentes, la inteligencia artificial está preparada para elevar la experiencia del cliente.
How was that? It was okay. Somebody was like, it was okay. And you know, this AI is just like real life. In real life, Spanish is still the sexiest language in the world, and Hindi sounds like you're reading an insurance document. I don't know why. It's just still the same. My people can never win. I don't know.
All right, so that's kind of a fun one to end on. I don't know if you've heard of the story of the mayor of New York when he basically was using generative AI to make robocalls, and people assumed when they saw him on the street that he spoke Mandarin. Not the case. Really shows how we need disclaimers when we use some of this technology.
Totally.
But there's some fun stuff you can do as well with this, right?
Well, listen, that clip was when I was in Cartagena, Colombia, doing a keynote for customer experience folks, and it's just showcasing that, you know, many organizations that are, you know, global, like now you can use somebody that's a customer service representative and be able to connect with people in their native language seamlessly. And I think that is really the potential for generative AI when it comes to translation. And I'm super excited for the world to become more connected, the world to become closer, so that we can understand each other. So it's going to be interesting, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it's gonna get wild and wacky. You know, AmberMac in Hindi, like I could just see like you blow up in India, just, you know, talking about technology in Hindi. I'm waiting for it.
I'm ready. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there is that potential, right, to live in a borderless world, to embrace generative AI in new and creative and unique ways. There's so much potential on our doorstep. And I think for both of us, that's one of the things we try to share with people on stages, share with people everywhere. I do want to kind of wrap up the conversation because, again, I'm conscious of your time. I could probably speak forever, as many people would not be surprised to hear. But I wanted to talk just about 2024. Last words from you in terms of where people can expect you, some of your goals for 2024 on this topic. What should people watch out for?
Well, you know, when it comes to me, like first of all, don't follow me, follow Amber, because she is putting in the work here. So follow her wherever you got to do, LinkedIn, wherever you got to go. For me, I want to keep experimenting. I want to keep being a practitioner, being on the ground floor, seeing where the future is going to go. I think one of the cool things that we're going to do is we're actually shooting a pilot for a new. I guess I can announce it here. We're shooting a pilot for a new show. We're shooting at the end of January. Let me know what you think about this. AI versus 100. We're AI versus 100 humans. So we're going to put AI versus like 100 musicians, 100 comedians, 100 consultants, and they're going to battle each other to see who could produce the best deliverable and the best product.
Wow.
And so we're really excited about that. Shooting at the end of January. We'll see if, you know, anybody picks it up. But
That's super fun.
Yeah, you know what? For me, it's like I love just being creative, and I love content, just like you. Like I love doing this. I love getting on stage. I love creating media. You know, we dropped a special on Apple TV and Prime this summer. Just exploring these, obviously with the book last year, like just exploring different ways of putting out content, because I believe what we do is that we can take this LinkedIn Live and it can touch so many people that Derek can ask a question, and now maybe I've, you know, tweaked his ideas in some sort of way. Like that's powerful. That's incredible. I just want to do this for the rest of my life and experiment more in this content world.
I love it. Well, I will be right there alongside you and super excited to always produce more content. And you're exactly right. Although I keep mentioning LinkedIn, you're probably going to end up seeing these clips on X or Threads or TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. The list goes on and on, because Shawn and I are masters at being able to take our content and push it out to different places, which is also important when brand building, especially going into 2024. Thank you, Shawn, so much for joining me, for coming to the studio.
It was such a pleasure. With the end of 2023, this was a perfect way to end it. So
absolutely. And thank you to everybody who has tuned in. I also want to just do a little plug for the Speakers Bureau that we both work for. If you are interested in booking keynotes with either of us for 2024, you can actually get in touch with Speaker Spotlight, and hopefully we'll see you on stage somewhere. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to Chris behind the scenes, who is running the show, doing a phenomenal job as always. We'll talk to you soon. Safe holidays and Happy New Year.